Not exactly hidden. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have more information. Thanks to the successful infiltration of bright forest spores into the underwater complex, we not only have a complete map of the area, but we have ID on several of the backers. In particular, Miss White, Miss Green, and Miss Pink have all been found. The chief says to the assembled cybercrime division and guests. The news understandably causes a stir. The floor is yours, young sorcerer. The chief says, and Darechar suddenly has a deer in the headlights. Look, as he's suddenly the center of attention for more than just being a male. Thank you for putting me on the spot like that, lady. He grumps as he steps up to the podium and ignores the raised eyebrow from the metak. He doesn't give her any further satisfaction. All right, my name is Darechar Crushclaw. I am... He waits for the whispering to subside. Yes, that Darechar Crushclaw, son of Brinchar the Bone Chewer, and I have indeed aided in his most recent crusade against the Orega girls by controlling and guiding a Leviathan, hence my new nickname as the Leviathan Lord. I will cut to the chase. With the aid of 2 amphibious, undaunted assets, I was able to spread bright forest spores into the closed-off environment where we suspected the supple satisfaction to be operating out of. He trails off as he grows more uncomfortable with the sheer attention. He takes a breath and focuses. Stick to the script, Dare. You practice this just in case. It has allowed me to not only map out their main brothel, but I was able to use it to get a look at the faces of customers, handlers, security, product, and administrators. We've also overheard several conversations, and the monikers of Miss White, Miss Green, and Miss Pink were all used around, clearly deferred to people. One of the women raises her hand and he pauses and blinks. Yes? Why are you talking so stiffly and formally? I'm not used to speaking in front of a crowd. I felt less pressure commanding the Leviathan, even when I had it dive down into a deep water abyss. Darechar says before taking a deep breath before plugging a data chop into the podium. It's on the first page, which is just a series of documents in a messy format. Excuse me a moment. It takes him a few seconds to get to the next bit. In a folder labeled Miss. All right. Now, sorcery isn't something that links up too well with technology, so we don't have a digital readout from inside yet. But, well, behind him the image shows the known identities, and the room is quickly awash with muttering, and for good reason. The 3 identified women are all well known and rich. Miss White is shown to be Zalia Sarate, a mantic businesswoman who has a large series of restaurant chains that are all over the local cluster. Miss Green is Jasmine Penderhot, a Tret woman with pale blonde hair and icy blue eyes. Her status as the owner of a famous talk show with the local entertainment industry always rolling out their plushest carpets for her has her extremely well known. Miss Pink is considerably less well known but still recognizable. Judge Felicia Height, an unusually tall feely with a reputation for being a complete hard-ass on lawbreakers. The muttering turns to arguing and a few women start to shout before the chief morphs her wing to slam a dedicated button. The entire room jumps as a massive blast of sound akin to a foghorn rips through and everyone turns to her. I did tell you ladies that we were looking for powerful and rich women. Now, your jobs are to either exonerate or bury 3's 3. If, big if, these 3 are indeed part of a child trafficking ring, then we need proof in order to rip them off their seats of power and have their assets frozen and their overly fed asses thrown into prison. Go in with open minds, but make sure we leave no stone unturned. No algorithm untried and no data repository untapped. This is either an enormous false flag or a gigantic break, the chief says before she flutters up onto the podium and Darechar steps away to avoid getting a face full of metak ass. Now, you ladies also said that you've been expanding your algorithms, right? And you've caught an interesting pattern, she asks. Ma'am, Roger says, standing up. In summary, we found a few old communications between these women. It goes back 20 years ago. But every person in the message was speaking a different language. So they're either multilingual on a larger scale than average or using translation software to talk to each other. Either way, it's a big hint. As we speak, our computers are currently running a massive scan for all recorded conversations that have each participant speaking a language different from the others. We're already getting some hits. I see. It looks like we're going to get confirmation one way or the other soon enough then. Any questions before I call an end to this update? The chief asks. Is there any way for the sorcerers to get a few devices into the Supple Satisfaction's base? If we can hack into their security and admin networks directly, we'll get our answers quickly. Bring them to me and I'll do what I can. But the facility is huge and properly spreading the fungus along it without drawing attention is slow and careful. We have about half the circumference just barely traced, but it's still the size of a city. We also think there's expanded space, and there's a lot of wards, a lot of security systems, a lot of guards. We have maybe a fourth of it all mapped out. There's a lot. Have you found any of the children yet? We haven't gotten any child yet, but we've heard them in the distance. Something screwy is going on, and we still need to spread the spores further. Heard them? The chief asks. You don't need to see exactly what happens to understand that a weeping child screaming for someone to stop is horrific, Darechar says. And why haven't you helped this child? We tried, but something happened. It's when we learned they were likely using expanded space, either that or a speaker system to let everyone hear the depravity, Darechar says, before he runs his hands through his hair and grabs onto his horns at the end of it. Anyone who knows Apuk body language can tell that he's massively stressed and struggling to keep things in. As it's literally bleeding into the axiom, it's easy to say that he's failing, and failing for a good reason. So, we have an underwater fortress where the rich and powerful have been spotted, and it echoes with the screams of abused children. Well, suffice to say, get back to work. I want these sickos and lunatics at my feet in chains. I don't care what kind of money or influence they have. By the time we're done with them, they'll struggle to get a job breaking rocks. The chief all but bellows to the rest of the room. Any questions? There are none, and she nods. Get to it then. The room is a rush out, and after the majority have gone, the chief turns to Darechar. She just looks at him and then nods. I advise you to step out of this investigation. You're clearly having a miserable time poking your nose into the worst of the worst. No, I should be able to do this. My father isn't you and was born in a far more brutal time. Step away. Your father didn't get a chance to back away, but you can. And what do you know about my father? Darechar demands. I've outright studied the Bone Chewer. I had to when I was assigned to this planet from the Academy. He's one of the greatest Apuk examples of a criminal you can't and shouldn't touch. He's not. You don't make horror movies out of law-abiding citizens. It doesn't matter how justified you pretend it is. Mass murder of a target group of people is genocide. They brutalized his brother, and this isn't about the Orega girls, your father, and who was justified in doing what. This is about you. You're not your father, so comparing yourself to him. I wasn't, Darechar snaps. I'm a fraction of his age. What could I possibly accomplish? Everything's safer. Everything he's famous for is illegal. Not only am I not him, I'm not allowed to even try to be him. Then why did you bring him up? He doesn't know what I know. And that is? I know how he kills. He doesn't know that. He thinks I was too busy with the Leviathan. I haven't brought it up with him. I haven't spoken with him about it. But I know what he does to someone he hates, and whether or not a pedophile deserves the full Bone Chewer experience, which, by the way, is left out of the movies because it's too damn disturbing even for the horror genre. Anyways, whether or not someone deserves that nightmare is irrelevant. Then what is relevant? The chief asks. My father told me that if this becomes too much to step back and he'll take care of it. It's a fine thing, but only when you're not dealing with something that brings the worst out of someone. I've been using Axiom to make sure my nights are dreamless. It was that bad. Now, do we really want a child? A child whose mind has been erased and brought back to innocence time after time after time, to be snapped out of it and rescued to the backdrop of a bone-chewer slaughter? No. How much worse is the actual thing? The chief asks him. Far, far worse. I know he would never do it to me, or anyone I care about, and it was still way over the top and terrifying. Look, I'm not sure how downright horrifying it is that the older sorcerers are on the move. These are people who define themselves with army-shattering vengeance, and they're starting to get angry. But if I keep going, I can mess yourself up and end up just as blood-hungry. The chief interrupts. If you're going to stay as part of this no matter what, then at the very least talk to a psychologist. You're not under my command, kid, so I can only recommend it as highly as I can. But seriously, talk to someone. Anyone. If you saw something that horrible, then you need to talk to someone. His expression goes through a dozen different flashes of emotion before he vanishes outright. The chief sighs and considers. She had thought the movies were exaggerations, not understatements. Most of the time, history is plumped up and made to look far grander than it was. But if the truth of a sorcerer's methods has been downplayed rather than overplayed, this isn't good. She flies back to her office and quickly locks it down before making a call. Police Chief Brewy, how may I help you? Captain Schmidt asks, and she sighs. We're just in the research and scouting stakeout stage of this joint operation, and more concerns are piling up, she says, and he lets out a considering sound. What's happened? Pukey asks. I've just been informed that the sorcerers are heavily agitated, the older sorcerers, the ones with well-earned reputations for murder and sadism. Chief Brewy states, and Pukey just lets out another considering tone. I would like more than that. My team is a small elite group. We have more people training in and working with us, but they're another group entirely, one I have very little authority over. They're still in this on your request, Chief Brewy, because we were kept around on Lil Batulelb on their request. Still, this is something you need to speak to the sorcerers directly about. I can pass you the information to speak with several of them, including Darechar. Pukey states. Are they truly needed? It would have been immensely more difficult without them. They're mostly going to be how we're getting the children out of the line of fire as we make as many arrests as possible. And I currently have a sorcerer mapping out and finding ways to subvert the defensive Axiom constructs around the facility, Pukey says. Send me the information. This is going to be something, Chief Brewy says, rubbing a hand over her face as she tries to center herself. Of course, talking to the thousands of years old mass murderer that's axiomatically and politically untouchable is what she's about to do. It's not like there's enough horror movies about this guy that it can take up a dedicated shelf in a library.